Good evening. In this broadcast, the information program Time, and first briefly about the primary events of the day. Today, the membership of the Russian-American crew was confirmed to be launched tomorrow from Baikonur. Alexei Ilyushenko has approached the mayor of Moscow with a request to approve the candidacy of Oleg Kaidanov for the post of prosecutor of the capital. Today, in a fire at the Irkutian hotel, at least 11 people have died. California has been hit by torrential rains, causing flooding and landslides. Thousands of people are left homeless. As information agencies from Almaty report, the situation in Kazakhstan after the decree of the President Nazarbayev to suspend parliament remains calm. I'll remind you that the Constitutional Court of the Republic has recognized results of the elections of the highest legislative body held 1 year ago to be invalid and hence the parliament illegitimate. With details, our correspondent. In Kazakhstan, there is a political crisis. There's no parliament. The government has resigned in full membership. The Constitutional Court recognized the elections of the Supreme Soviet as invalid, held in March of last year. The President Nazarbayev, now endowed with additional powers, is adopting decisions of a legislative nature and intends in the next few days to ratify the legislative acts and international agreements recently adopted by the ex-parliament. To the question of journalists, is there now dictatorship in the country? Nazarbayev said yes, but dictatorship of law. The country has a constitution. The country has its laws, and they will be fully complied with. The former deputies attempted to suspend the law governing the Constitutional Court, but alas, with great delay, and hence, painfully, the adoption of democratic norms in Kazakhstan is proceeding. The defense of civil rights appears to be higher than any personal interests and higher than political, economic, or other considerations. The law is severe, but it's the law. Nazarbayev intends to address the people. The presidentially appointed Prime Minister, Akitjan Kajilin, by the end of the week must submit a proposal on the membership of a new cabinet of ministers. According to Ichertas, the chairman of the Duma Committee on CIS Affairs, Konstantin Zaturin, said today that there is no reason to draw analogies between the suspension of the Kazakhstani parliament and events in Russia in September and October of 1993. Speaking at a briefing in the Duma, Konstantin Zaturin emphasized that everything which is occurring is strictly an internal affair of our friendly allied Republic of Kazakhstan. Today, the State Commission conclusively confirmed the crew of the 18th expedition to the station Mir. Among the members are Vladimir Dezhurov, Gennady Strikalov, and the American citizen Norman Taggart. They face complicated work in orbit consisting of straight records. For the first time for an American astronaut, it will be a truly lengthy flight, 95 days long. They also plan to 6 times emerge into open space. In May, another module, Spectrum, will be added to the station containing contemporary equipment, but the focal event will occur in June. The American shuttle should link up with the Russian orbital complex. At that time, on board the shuttle will be the current replacements, Anatoly Solovyov, Nikolai Budarin, and Bonnie Dunbar. They will continue the work on the station Mir, and their colleagues will return to Earth on the shuttle. But all of this will occur only if the technology doesn't malfunction. For now, the last pre-launch hours are ticking away. The launch will occur tomorrow at 9:11 Moscow time. The sensation of the day was today's announcement about the incident which occurred Friday in direct proximity to the Novorossiysk nuclear power station. Our military air force almost bombed this strategic object. We have a unique report from our correspondents from the site of occurrence. Near Voronezh, while executing a training flight from the bomber Su-25, a missile was launched. The rocket-propelled projectile fell on the fringe of the village, and you will still see the site, but beyond, at a distance of 6 to 8 kilometers, is the Novorossiysk nuclear power station. Injured and hospitalized was Nikolai Popov, who shielded his younger brother with his body. But who would save the people from a possible hit and, God forbid, a new nuclear catastrophe if the rocket had deviated only 2 degrees to the side? The military are not at fault here, specialists assert. The targeting and launching was executed correctly. The missile pursued an unpredictable course and went out of the pilot's control. This is being clarified currently. The matter is that between the city with a 1 million population and the nuclear power station, a bombing polygon has existed for a long time. The administration of the district repeatedly, several times, approached the Republic to move this polygon somehow. The responses were negative, negative, and negative. Therefore, I think that this case finally will influence the decision that this polygon must be moved into a safer place, or will we wait again until thunder strikes? The fire in the Irkutsk Hotel Siberia was liquidated only by 1500 hours Moscow time. From 3:30, all 4 stories of the hotel in the left wing burned down. Currently, on the site of the fire, rubble is being sifted through. And at this time, the fate of 24 people remains unknown. The residents of the hotel without accommodation, they were 173, were situated in other hotels in the city and provided with free food and necessary assistance. A commission is studying reasons for the fire. Everything possible was being done to aid the victims and their relatives. The situation in Chechnya remains complicated. As Iturtas reports, Dudaev supporters continue to offer resistance to federal forces. In the last few days, representatives of federal forces are in active talks with the administrations of several populated points in the southeast of Chechnya, whose residents express a desire to single-handedly squeeze out the gunmen. By the village Chernoreche, for example, an armed group of local residents annihilated 2 posts of unlawful armed formations, whose arsenals included a cannon and grenade launcher. In the Federative Council today, fine-tuning of the organization of the conference was underway for the peace initiative in the Caucasus. It will open tomorrow in Moscow in the Parliamentary Center. The Vice Speaker of the Higher Chamber, Ramazan Abdulabtipov, at a press briefing stated that the main aim of the conference is to achieve peace in Chechnya. Working on this problem will be representatives of presidential structures, the parliament, the government, clergy, and heads of the regions. I feel that the conference should be of a nature of a constantly functioning body. Ramazan Abdulabtipov, who just returned from his tour of the Northern Caucasus, stated that the border of Chechnya, in essence, currently is not being controlled. The flow of weapons into the republic is not impeded. The Vice Speaker spoke of the corruption of Russian authorities controlling the border between Chechnya and Dagestan. With the knowledge of border troops, Ramazan Abdulabtipov stated, it became possible recently to supply Dudaev with a large shipment of weapons and money from Azerbaijan through Dagestan. The coming 2-week vacation of the President of Russia will begin the 27th of March and will be of a business nature. Iturtas was told today by well-informed sources within the Kremlin. It's planned that Boris Yeltsin will take a train from Moscow to the south and will visit Ryazan, Rostov-on-the-Don, and Kislovodsk, and also possibly other cities in the central belt and south of Russia. During the last week, inflation in Russia was recorded at 2.7%, which in essence corresponds to its average weekly designation from February. This business task was told today in the center of economic conjecture under the government. During the first week of March, the growth of prices on foods and non-consumable goods was 2.5%, and on payable services for the population, 3.8%. Adopting a 4-day work week as of today was the Amozil plant. RIA News was told today by the deputy head engineer, Vladimir Losov. This is connected with the inability to fully engage all the equipment because of a shortage of cash flow. According to the directorship of the plant, if the situation doesn't change, 30,000 employees of ZIL will face a 3-day vacation weekly until the end of April. Russia, for now, does not plan to import grain and will attempt to manage with its own grain resources until the next harvest. This was stated by the Vice Premier, Alexander Zaviruka, at a press conference in Moscow. In the current sowing season, Russian producers of agricultural goods will not encounter deficits in seeds and will be able to receive fuel and crude materials in the form of a products credit against future deliveries. This was said to the press today by Alexander Zaviruka. The first Vice Premier connects great hopes with the creation of a food corporation and feels that Russia is gradually overcoming dependence on imported agricultural goods, mostly because of the farmers' businesses, to the support of which this year 315 billion rubles will be allotted from the federal budget and 15% of all capital investments from local budgets. In the opinion of Alexander Zaviruka, the only thing to solve the problem will be of the increase of retail prices and the cost of agricultural goods will be privatization of processing plants by the rural agricultural producers themselves. Vladimir Shumeyka included into the draft law in the Federative Council a tenet pursuant to which the President of Russia is a lifelong member of the higher chamber of Parliament. The adoption of such a formulation would help elevate the prestige of the President of Russia after the end of his term, which is customarily a policy in developed democracies. This was said to a correspondent of Peter Das in the legal department of the Federative Council. The chairman of the Committee of the Duma on Defense, Sergei Yushchenkov, will submit to the demand of the Duma faction Russia's choice and will continue to fulfill his responsibilities as head of the committee. However, the question of resignation is not closed, Peter Das was told by Sergei Yushchenkov himself. The mayor of Moscow, Yuri Lushkov, submitted documents of appeal into the Supreme and Constitutional Courts today in connection with a decision to dismiss the heads of the law enforcement organs of the capital. The documents will be sent to the recipients Tuesday, Interfox was told, by a representative of the State Legal Department of the Mayoralty, Sergei Bontsov. The head of the investigative team in the case of the murder of Vladislav Listyev, Boris Uvladov, refuted today's rumors that ostensibly sanctions were granted to arrest the presidents of the firm Reese S. and the advertising agency Premier SV, Sergei Lisovsky. In an interview to Interfox, he said that these assertions, which he heard on the radio, are yet more misinformation, and although Lisovsky is one of those within the circle of the murdered journalists, for this arrest there is no basis. Uvladov added that nothing new on the murder of Listyev can be announced by the investigation at this time. In Russia today, an investment climate has been created where Russian citizens are ready to invest their money into industrial companies. This was stated by the first Vice Premier, Anatoly Chubais, in Nizhny Novgorod. These are the first 2 apartment buildings built in the auto plant region through the means of the residential loan in effect in Nizhny Novgorod since autumn of last year. The first Vice Premier of the government of Russia, Alexis Skovets, was told that in the 238 apartments basically are intended and are already occupied by employees of the joint stock company Gas, which because of its own construction industry helped to create them. Because of the residential loan through the funds, Nizhegorodians managed to revive many long-term construction projects. Anatoly Chubais was acquainted with prospective developments and types of automobile technology and was present at the presentation of yet another loan, an auto loan, which was issued on a 2-year term for 200 billion rubles. In 1.5 months, more than 1.5 billion worth of bonds was sold. Anatoly Chubais was involved in the organizational committee preparing for the centennial of the Pan-Russian Artistic Industrial Exhibit to be marked the summer and autumn of 1996 at the Nizhegorod Fair. The plant is at a standstill. The directors are arrested. Under this resounding title, a report was sent to us from Volgograd by our correspondent, Yevgeny Orlov. Here, in the Volgogradsk Manufacturing Association barricades, the famous SS-20 missiles were produced, contemporary artillery complexes and extensive, powerful combat technology, and now the plant is barely surviving and is almost at a standstill. For months, there are no salaries paid out, and the office of the General Director, Yuri Starikov, is empty. He and his 2 deputies were arrested by the Federal Service of Counterintelligence, a finale which shocked not just the staff of the plant, but many residents of Volgograd. The director of the massive defense plants are accused of accepting bribes of extremely large proportions on several occasions from a certain Bulgarian firm, which represented the interests here of the German company of some renown, Mannesmann Hammer. They used to deliver goods at less than cost to the detriment of the company, but pocketed enormous sums of dollars. That is, high-quality grades of steel, which were no longer needed by the plan. The expensive steel was sold at next to nothing, and salary was extracted with loud arguments from the local budget. And this is how they deal with crime in Uzbekistan. Like this, every evening operational teams of the Internal Affairs of the Republic disperse into the city. Their major efforts are directed at exposing established crime groups and crime authorities and to solve serious crimes. Only in the last year in Uzbekistan, more than 700 organized criminal groups were exposed. More than 2,000 units of firearms were confiscated. A strict war was declared on the narcotics business. Several types of extremely serious crimes were reduced dramatically because of new laws as well. A new law has been adopted for criminal responsibility for organized crime. Incidentally, this was adopted for the first time on the territory of the former Soviet Union, where for the first time such crimes as theft, robbery, brigandage, and hijacking of vehicles, the punishment is incarceration from 12 to 15 years. For the sale of narcotic substances, Uzbekistan provides a penalty of 15 years imprisonment, or the highest form of punishment, capital punishment. The Vice President of the United States, Albert Gore, stated during his one-day visit to Estonia that the United States will continue to extend assistance to the Russian military withdrawn from the Baltic states. Speaking after today's meeting with the President of Estonia, Leonard Meri, he stated that for these objectives, $160 million was allotted. The Vice President said that the Baltic states can become NATO members on the same conditions as the former socialist countries in Central and Eastern Europe. As a result of riots which erupted in the second capital of Turkey, Istanbul, on Sunday night, 6 people have died. According to official statistics, 3 people have died and 12 have been injured during clashes which occurred today in Istanbul between the police and demonstrators. Today at around midday, around 2,000 extremists attacked one of the police compounds. Despite the warnings issued, they disturbed the peace, crossed barriers, and began to hurl rocks and Molotov cocktails at police agents. However, when the authorities opened fire, the situation became manageable. The reason for the disorder were armed provocations committed by unidentified persons in quarters of Istanbul occupied by representatives of the Muslim sect, the Alawites. The Turkish President Demirel condemned the provocation and admonished the population of the city to observe law and order. The statement of the Croatian President, Franjo Tuđman, about the willingness of the Croatian leadership to extend the mandate of the UN peacekeeping forces in this former Yugoslavian republic is one of the leading topics of international life in the last day. It's quite apparent that the international pressure on Franjo Tuđman has yielded its results. In any case, the intense contacts with the President of Croatia have led to a softening in the position of Croat leadership vis-à-vis the question of the presence of blue helmets in the Republic. The UN mandate is to expire the 31st of March, and by then, by decision of Franjo Tuđman, the peacekeepers were to relinquish their positions. The threat of the development of a large-scale combat in the Balkans after the UN departure alarmed the international community significantly, and here is the long-awaited solution, although partial. As the Croatian president said at a press conference in Copenhagen, the UN forces mandate will be extended until the Security Council develops a new document. Although the numbers of the peacekeeping contingent will be decreased from the current 12,000 to between 5 and 6, these forces will be deployed not only where they are currently in points of contiguity between Croats with Croat Serbs, but also on the borders between Croatia and Bosnia, and also with Serbia and Chernogorия. Such a turn of events has already been viewed approvingly in various countries, but does it mean a fundamental change in the Balkan situation? Not at all, and the reasons continue to be the complicated and tense situation in Bosnia-Herzegovina, which neighbors with Croatia. After Saturday's killing by Muslim snipers of 2 Serbian girls in the Bosnian capital Sunday, over the Sarajevo airport, a plane was shot at carrying special representatives of the Secretary General and the commander of the UN forces in former Yugoslavia. Fortunately, all of them survived, which incidentally didn't hinder Isusi Akasi from announcing the deterioration of the situation in Bosnia. In this connection, one must probably conclude that efforts of the international community do yield their fruits, but not everywhere or always, and therefore to speak of the disappearance of a threat of war in the Balkans in light of the announcement of the President of Croatia is premature. In Romanian villages on the Danube River, the smell of gasoline has penetrated everything: streets, homes, and gardens. Here, contraband is the second basic profession. On my right is Romania, where, as of today, is Europe's cheapest gasoline. And today, in Yugoslavia, it's the most expensive. One successful trip to Yugoslavia brings profits significantly surpassing average monthly salary. However, not everyone has access to that gain. Shafts which provided the local population with earnings are declining. Unemployment is increasing. facing. But people must live, and so they embark on risky business ventures. Each morning they buy and store near the water canisters and barrels with gasoline. In front of the border troops, which have no right to invade private property, basic events occur at night, however, as darkness falls. Armadas of boats loaded to the gills, and here there are hundreds and maybe even thousands leave for the Yugoslavian coast. It's impossible to stop or catch them. Have a look. These canisters and barrels with gasoline were confiscated only last night. Border troops are at work 24 hours a day, confiscating boats, motors, arresting people. But they can't stop the embargo violators. More than 2 years has passed since the embargo was placed on Yugoslavia. For some it has brought profit, for some bankruptcy and great suffering. But as this happens, it's the case in war. During these days, from all over Romania, heavy gasoline tankers are headed for the Danube. In Yugoslavia, the sowing season is starting, and soon there the fuel will be even more expensive. The Cuban leader, Fidel Castro, arrived today in the French capital. Tomorrow, with the wife of the President of France, is the first function of the Chairman of the State Council of Cuba, Fidel Castro. He's come to France for the first time during all his years in power. On the eve, the First Lady of France, Danielle Mitterrand, considering herself to be a friend of Cuba, stated that Fidel Castro is not a dictator. Today, Castro met with the President of France, Mitterrand. The Cuban leader will speak at UNESCO and will be received by the Chairman of the National Assembly, representatives of business circles interested in developing ties with Cuba. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of France, Edouard Balladur, evidently is not feeling up to esteemed foreign guests. I never saw a more disgusting pre-election campaign than this. This was admitted to by Jean Pasqua, recently Minister of Internal Affairs of France, organizer of the pre-election campaign of the Prime Minister Edouard Balladur. He, more than anyone, has reason for dissatisfaction. His candidate in the last month has fallen much behind in the pre-election race, fighting suddenly emerging impediments as they arise. The scandal with the telephone wiretapping, in which the police service turned out to be involved, and later the controversy of the matter of American spies, and here a newspaper article about 2+ million francs belonging to the Prime Minister Balladur, which is his revenue from the sale of stock he owned in the company which he had headed previously. The story with the shares had no legal repercussions for him. The operation was conducted within the frame of the law, although morally the aspect of his personal profit was discussed by many, especially in the heat of pre-election campaigns, which forced the Prime Minister to publish the figures about his personal financial status and the financial condition of his family. Will Balladur, in the last month before the first round of elections, catch up in the polls with Jacques Chirac, who's far ahead? It's a difficult question. Leading the pre-election race, the mayor of Paris has a leading edge over his rival candidates. If the political and business circles of the country have already decided their affiliation and support of which candidate, the ordinary voters in their majority have not made yet a final decision, and they have the last word unconditionally. The moved valuables. This mundane, colorless title is given today to masterpieces of world art removed during the Second World War from the Soviet Union and Germany, and now are one of the contentious issues in the mutual relations between Bonn and Moscow. The list of mutual claims looks as such. We owe 200,000 items of art, mostly paintings, and Germany owes 40. However, a stipulation is made that 90% of them are in the hands of private collectors, including those across the ocean, and therefore should be removed from discussion in view of futility of regaining them. Apart from the demand to return unlawful possessions, in the position of the leaders of the FRG, there are many discrepancies. Some assert that there are no trophies of war left in the country at all. Others say that they were returned long ago, although they all equally forget the 400 museums pillaged and destroyed by Sonderkommands, and also about the fact that in the late 1950s we voluntarily returned more than 350,000 priceless masterpieces. In India, one of the largest automobile catastrophes in its history has occurred. More than 85 people have died as a result of the automobile crash which occurred in the south of India. 50 kilometers from Madras, a commuter bus collided with a tanker truck transporting fuel. On impact, an explosion followed, and flame engulfed the bus instantly. In the giant bonfire also was a tractor-trailer which was moving along the same road, on which a group of peasants was headed for a wedding. According to the roads police, almost all of the people in the two vehicles and on the tractor perished, except for one passenger of the bus who managed to jump out of the vehicle. Today, Victor Chernomyrdin met with the creators of the film The White Son of the Desert, which turns 25 years. The best Soviet war movie has no prizes and wasn't permitted in any festival, although immediately the film was purchased by more than 100 countries. The White Son of the Desert owes its emergence greatly to Leonid Brezhnev, who was enthralled by the movie, viewing it at Ostankino. Evidently, the scenes are pleasing to the current leadership of the country. Today, Victor Chernomyrdin promised to support creators of the film in the Committee on State Awards, and possibly soon the film will receive its first award. The government will allocate funds for a showing dedicated to the anniversary of the movie. In the West, the best films always are followed by sequels. The director, Vladimir Matel, told the premiere that he's ready to produce White Son of the Desert 2. He just needs to find funds. In Petersburg, meantime, the exhibit of Pablo Picasso has opened. Selections from the collection of a German collector, Peter Ludwig. The owner of one of the largest private collections of fine artist, Peter Ludwig, the works of Pablo Picasso is a unique diamond in his collection. Almost 200 works of the great Spaniard are displayed at the exhibit, which opened in the Marble Palace of the Russian Museum. Art of the young Picasso is represented by works of his blue and pink periods. This was the period of enlightenment and fragile hopes. In those years, the artist creates feminine images penetrated with profound lyricism. Time would pass, and interest in the human for Picasso would be replaced by an interest in plastic forms. He had a period of cubism. The neoclassical and surrealistic tendencies emerged in his works. At this unique exhibit, all prime levels of the artistic pursuits of the artist are presented. One of the works belonging to the brush of the master, the German collector gave as a gift to the Russian Museum, and overall the works of 33 authors in Ludwig's collection, basically work of underground artists, which are absent essentially in our museums, supplemented the treasury of domestic art. This step, the collector feels, will contribute to strengthening cultural ties between Russia and Germany. From the 26th of March until the 24th of September, in Russia, it's officially summer. This was stated today by the Interdepartmental Commission on Time and Standards of Meridian Frequencies. Hence, the hands of clocks on all the territory of the country at 2 o'clock on the 26th of March will be moved 1 hour ahead. That was my last information for you in half a minute. The sports news with Oksana Polonskaya. All the best. Good evening. Briefly about the main sports events of the day. 1 hour ago in the Canadian Thunder Bay at the World Skiing Championships, the 15-kilometer men's race has ended. It was conducted by the Gunderson system. From the first kilometers, Vladimir Smirnov took the lead. He was very successful at the current championship, and the sports press probably justifiably christened him the king of the competition. At that distance, Smirnov was first as well. This is his third gold medal in Thunder Bay. In second place is Silvio Fauner, and Juzo Metsa from Finland has the bronze. The Ural volleyball players from the Ekaterinburg area won the European Championships in the decisive match. In 3 matches, they have beat the Spanish team Murcia. Today, with 8 matches, the final levels of the International Hockey League tournament has begun. Right now you'll see the results of the matches which we have received at this hour. Nothing supernatural in the league of the tournament has happened yet. Victory was held by the visiting Torpedo Yaroslavls, the Dynamos, the Wings of the Soviets, Salavat Ulayev. One of the most determined matches was the Scout Peterburg with Avangard, which you see on your screens. Overtime was needed. A final score is not known yet. The Wings of the Soviets won away from home again, and Lada and Metallurg as well. Briefly about tennis at the major tournament in Indiana Wells, an astounding finale awaits fans with 2 giants of world tennis. Pete Sampras, he beat Edberg in the semis, and Andre Agassi, who in 2 sets beat Boris Becker. There's probably highest justice in the fact that the best players of the world will sort out relations in another singles match. Steffi Graf is attempting to regain her first place in the world rating for the 6th time. She's the winner of the women's games in Delray Beach, beating Conchita Martinez. For now, this is not enough to squeeze Aranka Sanchez from the first place in world classification. Good evening. Tomorrow is St. Yevdokia's Day, and according to the fall calendar, they say that this day indicates the weather for summer. If on St. Yevdokia it's clear, the year will be marvelous. If it's cloudy, the year will be unfavorable. And meteorologists promise on the 14th of March on the majority of the European part of Russia, sunny and cold weather. This is the result of the influence of an anticyclone with a center in the north of the Gorky district. In the Volgovyatsk area, in the majority of the Republic of Komi, in the south of the Arhangelsk district, -2 to 7 degrees. The northwest region, the Baltic countries, and Karelia will see temperatures of -2 to +3. From the northwest to the Kola Peninsula, the North Arhangelsk district, the Nenets Autonomous district, and the northeast of the Republic of Komi, atmospheric fronts will move in. It will be cloudy with some patches of snow and blizzards, temperatures of -2 to 7. An anticyclone over the Gorky district will influence the weather of the central and lower Volga area, the central Chernozemir central area, and Belarus. On this broad territory, some light cloudiness is expected, no precipitation, brief snow is possible on the lower Volga. Temperatures on -3 to 8 on the central Volga, -5 to 10. Under the influence of the same anticyclone in Ukraine and in Moldova, precipitation will cease and gradually cloud cover will decrease and it will be cooler, -4 to +1. The Rostov area, the Krasnodar, Stavropol areas, and also the republics of the Northern Caucasus will be in the zone of an atmospheric front. Therefore, it will continue to be variably cloudy with windy and cloudy weather and patches of precipitation. In Kalmykia, there will be some storms. Around Novorossiysk, strong northeasterly winds are expected, temperatures of -2 to 7. In the republics of the Northern Caucasus, 0 -5 degrees. On the Black Sea coast of the Krasnodar area, there is some brief scattered precipitation, +7 to 12 degrees. Beyond the Caucasus, some light rain is possible during the day, +7 to 12. In St. Petersburg, variably cloudy skies, no precipitation at night, -4 to 6 during the day, +1 to 3. After a lengthy warm period, in the capital it will become colder, and according to the meteorologists, this colder weather in the next few days will continue. Tomorrow in Moscow, partly cloudy without precipitation, at night -12 to 14, during the day -1 to 3 degrees. That was the forecast for the 14th of March. Goodbye.